Welcome to the Art of Decluttering. I'm Kirsty Back.
And I'm Amy Revell, and we're in smoky Melbourne today.
Yes.
Do you think the whole country is as smoky as Melbourne today, or do you reckon that it's... Because
Canberra's
today's the worst it's been in Melbourne since the beginning of the fires.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
This ain't nothing, my friend.
Oh, I can imagine. Tell us about what it's like in New South Wales at the moment.
So we are recording in January, just to give some context to the people listening. We have had pretty bad days. Like today is, I don't know how to classify it. Mm-hmm. Like it's hazy, but it's not...
It's not smoky.
It's not smoky.
Right.
In Sydney, we've had days where you can't see the Harbour Bridge from the tower, like it's been descended haze.
Yeah.
And when I was driving down here from Sydney, and it was right after it was
at the peak of the fires.
Just after the peak of the fires. At some points, I couldn't see off the side of the road. Yeah, didn't I tell you that? No, so for all of the drive, there was haze like there is today.
Yeah.
And then there was some times where we could only see a couple of 100 metres in front of us and a couple of 100 metres off to the side. And then there was one point, it was probably near the Buffalo fires, that we couldn't see off the side of the road. Like you could only see the barriers on the side of the road. You couldn't see past that. And so some days in Sydney, and I know Canberra's been the worst place.
Yes.
So Canberra's been in heavy descender haze.
So let's quickly pull Carly in. Welcome, Carly. We've got Carly here on the episode today.
Oh, yeah, hello.
Because you've got family in Canberra, or you live
friends and adopted family, I guess, from our time living in Canberra.
And what are they reporting on the...
It's pretty bad. They've sold out of air filters, I think, around the place. I've got a few friends who've actually left Canberra for the health of them and their kids who are asthmatic and gone to family interstate at the moment.
Yeah.
So in some ways it's helpful that it is a school. So for our overseas listeners, this is our summer holidays, so similar to America, but we have 6 to 7 to 8 weeks off school, and lots of businesses go into slow mode, and it's a real juggle for working parents to find care for their children for that long holidays, because we don't have, unlike America, we don't have camps, very many camps, and we might have day camps, and there might be like a week or two of camps, but you can't send your kids away for the whole summer holidays like you can in the States. So in some ways we're lucky to be in a season that we can we're not having to take kids out of school to get them out of Canberra and out of fire affected zones. You can go and stay with your family. And yes, you are taking time off work, and it's a huge inconvenience and horrible, but you're not having to take your kids out of school and missing school just to get them into good air quality.
Just make it safe. Far out. So that's where we are.
Yeah.
That's the state of our country. Hopefully by the time this episode is aired, that's no longer the state of our country. So many people have contacted us from America particularly and checked in on us. Kirsty and I are in cities, so we're safe from fire, but lots of our clients and friends and listeners and community and our country is in pain. So continue to pray for rain and healing and,
Community,
yeah.
So we have Carly. Carly.
Hello.
So lovely
so good to have you.
So can you introduce yourself to us and tell us a little bit about you and your family and why you're here?
I can. So as you said, my name's Carly. I have a family, my husband Chad and my 2 beautiful children. I've got a 3.5-year-old and a 5.5-year-old who is about to start school.
Woohoo! Are you woohooing or are you a bit nervous?
No, I'm woohooing.
She's ready.
Bit nervous about the logistics. But yeah. Otherwise, I'm ready. My daughter's ready, definitely. So I went on a decluttering journey myself. When my now 3.5-year-old was born, I hit that point of overwhelm, as you hear a lot.
Yes.
I worked through quite a lot myself and started listening to podcasts about minimalism. I got onto the Slow Home podcast with Brooke McAlary, who I know a lot of other listeners probably listen to as well. And on that podcast, Brooke interviewed Kirsty.
Hey.
So I listened with a lot of interest. I'd been thinking about having a professional organiser in for a while, wasn't sure what it involved, if I really needed one. I didn't feel like I had a house too packed full of stuff, but I also knew it was too much for me. So looked up Kirsty, found out she was in Sydney, found Amy in Melbourne, gave her a call, and had Amy come into my house and declutter. With her coming into my house and decluttering, I mentioned to her that it was also something I'd enjoyed doing and was interested in doing for other people. So that's the connection.
And then you've started working for us.
I have.
Yay! We're so thankful for you.
So I would agree with you in the sense that your house definitely wasn't cluttered. But I love what you said, it was too much for you. Can you share a bit about what that looked like and how you knew that? Like, how did you at one point go, okay, this is not where I want to be. This is not my vision.
Absolutely. I'll start with when you did see it, I had been probably steadily working through for about a year on bits and pieces. I don't think our house ever looked messy from the outside, but every cupboard was packed. It was that whole find a place for someone, throw things when someone came over. So I'd spent a lot of time working on systems, not realising until I got onto the decluttering journey that it was too much stuff in there. So I had been spending a lot of time clearing out, but by the time I called Amy in, there was a few trouble spots that I just hadn't been able to crack myself and needed an outside opinion. And I knew I needed someone that was sort of distanced to give that opinion and assistance. So that's where I knew it was too much. The other reason was if I had to find something, it was a struggle and then a cause of stress on myself, my husband and kids if you couldn't find something straight away. So it was having that freedom, I'll use your word, of knowing exactly where something is that I'm now I'd say getting to, not 100%.
The difference between, say, Lex that we interviewed a few weeks ago and you is Lex, we worked together over multiple months, whereas for you it was 3 sessions and that was it. You didn't need any more help from me because you had it. Like it was back to where you needed it to be and you could maintain it.
Yeah, I'd say also after those sessions, there were a lot of things that clicked over time. So a few of the questions Amy asked about, do you really need this and why? And I'd answer straight away with why, because it was given to me by so-and-so. And she'd say, okay. And then it would take a few weeks to settle in and I'd look back at something and go, actually, I don't need this. So it was a process afterwards as well of having everything settle in and giving myself the permission that Amy gave as well to get rid of things.
It sounds like you are similar to so many of our listeners, that you had really great organising skills, that you had a plan in place for everything in your home. You just had too much. And you would also do that swipe or don't swipe. Like you would do the swipe and you would shove it in a cupboard and then that became overwhelming. Is that a
yes,
right reflection?
Yes, and I would say also I think my husband is a little bit of a soulmate for Simon in that he's extremely organised. And so I have come on board with that. But it also helps his stress levels, having that environment and me stepping up a bit as well to keep everything. I guess his tolerance for the clutter is lower than my tolerance.
Yep. Let's get them to meet one day and commiserate over the wives that they chose.
Who are now both professional organisers, funnily enough.
Yes. Yeah. And we can say we are like this because of you, lovely Chad and lovely Simon. Yes. So has it made what impact has that had on your relationship with Chad?
It's made things smoother, I think. He can ask where something is and I can answer. There's not that stress point around our things. There's not that stress point around having people over. If I have my parents or family coming over, there's no scramble to tidy the whole house before people get in the door. It's okay, do Do we need to duck to the shops and get any food? No, we're good.
That's great.
Awesome.
Even I'm not there at the moment. We had Kirsty over yesterday and I was like, oh my gosh, the house looks like a bomb went off. And Emily did say, why is your house so messy? I was like, because it's the middle of the school holidays.
Well, I should add, with 2 small children, it changes very, very
it doesn't
quickly.
take long, does it?
And that was going to be my next question. Have you seen any changes in your kids? They are very young, but has there been any change?
I think probably not that I've noticed in terms of a change in them, but I'm learning how better to pitch things to them, to keep things clear. And I'm constantly trying new things with them, with what works and what doesn't. And I had a chat to my 5.5-year-old on the way out the door this morning because she was trying to find a toy and she couldn't find it. And I said, do you think maybe you just have too many of that type of toy? We should talk about which ones you want to keep and which ones you want to take to the op shop when you get back from daycare. And she said, oh, yeah, okay, Mum, which was a bit of a turning point for her. And for me, I guess, in how I've asked the question, because I might have previously said, you've got too much stuff, let's get rid of it. And, of course, they get protective over their stuff.
Yeah.
So
what has been the transition from feeling like, from having a overwhelming home for you, and reaching out to Amy and then transitioning to becoming a professional organiser yourself?
I would say it's a lot easier when it's someone else's things from your own. So I would start with that.
Yes, it is.
So when you don't have that emotional attachment, I think it's a very different space. The difficulty I find in doing organising for someone else is more of the emotional load in looking out for them and worrying about asking the right questions or whether I'll push them too much or not enough, and that balance rather than over the actual items. Whereas when you're doing your own, it's a decision point over each item.
That's really insightful, because I think that is the hardest part of being a professional organiser, is holding that space, asking the right questions, the emotional load. That is so well put. So well put.
We love you, Carly.
We really do.
Thank you. I love you both too.
So, Carly, you work casually for us. What do you do outside of organising? Obviously, you've got 2 little ones.
I do. And I work 4 days a week in a corporate role as well. So that's a part-time role around small children and daycare. But it is 1 day at home. I do flexible arrangements, and then 3 days in the office. So there's a commute involved and meal prep and organisation for that time that I'm out of the house.
Talk to us about that, because neither Kirsty or I work outside of the house that much, because we're with clients, but we're generally with clients within school hours. We're not in a corporate role where it's like maybe a 9 to 5, 4 days a week.
And we dictate when we start work.
Correct. We get to make the choices.
To dictate it.
Yeah. So talk to us about that and how you've made that work, and maybe some tips for our community as well.
Obviously, it's different for every family. For our family, my husband Chad goes quite early in the morning. He leaves home before 6 most mornings to make it to the other side of the city. So I do daycare drop-off and go into work, and then I stay later and he comes home and does pick-up. And most parents I know where both are working tend to do that staggered arrangement where one will do drop-off, one will do pick-up. We're both morning people, which makes it hard because I sort of lose my most productive time. But that's how we had to work it for our family. And Chad's more of a morning person. He wakes up and he's awake. Unfortunately for me, as are both the children. So they're both up at the crack of dawn.
I hear you, sister.
I hear as well.
So, yeah, they're ready to go often before I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
It's that luxury of waking up when you're ready to, as opposed to small
Can I
faces
tell
at the
you
side
that
of
it
the
makes
bed.
it really easy when they're both at primary school?
Yes.
Because they're both able to, you will train them to make their own lunches, to get their bags packed, and then they'll, be able to do creative play or be on the iPad or watch TV, and you'll be able to get up when you're ready, and you'll still and they'll be ready because they're
awesome.
up
Good to
for
know.
hours.
Yeah. Our
the
back
one
to school
benefit.
episode, we talk a lot about the dial and the switch type of kids. So if you haven't listened to that episode, it was a few weeks ago. And I think when you've got switch kids, which are wake up, they're ready to go, it makes parenting in the morning much easier. So look forward to that.
That will be good. That will be helpful.
Thank you, Chad, for that part.
Yes. He does do a lot of the cooking and the meal prep, though, and he preps his own meals. So weekends we'll stagger. He'll get his meals ready for the week and into the freezer, and then I'll do the same for mine because he's a vegetarian and I'm not, so we have slightly different eating arrangements and preferences as well. He does most of the dinners because he picks up the kids. So that's how the split works in that way. Housework in our house is pretty evenly split. I think if you ask Chad, he'll tell you he does all of it. There's just a lot with 2 kids, so we both feel like we're doing all of it.
Sure we don't have the same husband and he's just commuting between Melbourne and Sydney?
Apparently there's no time around the laundry. So we're lucky in that respect, in that it sort of fell into quite an even split quite naturally for us. And the organisation, again, I've taken on most of the home admin. And I think, as you've previously talked about in the mental load episode and a few others, that does tend to fall often to the female in the relationship. Mm-hmm. So that's been a bit of a transition on both our part. I ask now if there's things I can't keep track of with being at work as well, and especially when work ramps up, things drop off the radar for home, and I've learnt to ask for help in that area.
That's really good.
I love your clients who are amazing at asking for help.
I know. So good.
Yeah.
Right, we all know how much you love the Art of Decluttering, and I have got something equally as good as the Art of Decluttering. It is Amy's book, Simply Organised. You get a couple of hours of Amy's dulcet tones talking to you as she explains to you all the goodness of how to simply get organised and declutter your home. Head over to Amazon and you can get the Kindle version or the audiobook there.
Kelly, for someone who, like you, is interested in professional organising but not yet ready to kind of launch into it full-time and start their own business, how has it been coming on as a casual for us? And is that something that you would say to other people, hey, that's a great idea if you can find a professional organiser in your area? Like, how has that played out rather than going like, I'm going to quit my job, I'm just going to do this full-time?
I'd absolutely recommend doing it that way. It gives you the safety net, of course, of finding out if you like it, seeing what it involves, because every job is very different, working out if it's something that you'd like to do. And also, I've had the privilege of working with Amy and Kirsty as well on one job, and just listening to what you say and how you say it to clients is what I've got the most out of. So I think going in with someone else, finding a professional organiser and having them as a bit of a mentor trainer in that type situation is a smooth way to do it and find out if you like it before jumping in yourself.
I wish I'd done that. I didn't even know there were other professional organisers in the world when I started, except for Kirsty. Like I didn't know anyone in Melbourne that was an organiser, but I think it took me a long time to work out that mental space. What about you, Kirst?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
It would have been really helpful to have someone just watch and go, oh, that's how they're asking that question and that's how the language can be phrased around this. And we, as professional organisers, learn to ask questions intentionally. So rather than, I can see that you've got 7 spatulas, do you need them all? For which the answer will most likely be yes. It's like, I can see you've got 7 spatulas. Are there 3 that you prefer to use? You know, like there's ways, and that's not manipulative, that's helping them make a decision. Like we're not saying you could only have 3, pick 3 and I'm going to chuck out, like we're not taking, but it is helping people. So to have learnt that back at the start would have been amazing.
I also wanted to ask a similar question than what we asked Lex. You had listened to our podcast, so you felt like you knew us before you contacted Amy. But how did you feel when you were opening the door to Amy, or how did you feel in the lead up to Amy actually coming into your house? Because you, as you said, you had done lots of preparation, you'd been listening to lots of things, minimalist, and you've been working really hard on yourself and in your home, and you had decided that, yes, you do need somebody to come alongside you. How did it feel? How were you feeling?
Still nervous. Amy sends an email if you book a session about what to do and what not to do, and not feeling like you have to prepare the house. But as with, I think it's culturally ingrained, if you have a guest or someone coming over to your house, you still want to prepare it. So it was almost counterintuitive to sit and wait. So I would say if anyone else is experiencing that, it's quite normal. Feeling like, did I really need Amy to come in? You know, are there other people who probably not need it more, but are more deserving of her time or something like that?
Dig a bit into that for us.
I think, as I said earlier, I didn't feel like my house was a disaster, but I did recognise I had those last few really stubborn areas that I wanted to knock over. So it was that balance. And also the investment of the money investment, so that those questions of whether it was the most appropriate way to spend the money and the time.
Because I think that's a question a lot of people have, but they feel bad asking us. Like they feel bad. Do you find this, Kirst? Like when you're talking to clients, like they want to say, oh, I don't think I'm ready yet. But what they're saying is, I don't know if I can justify spending that amount of money on something that I feel like I should be able to do myself.
Yeah, and when our culture tells us that we should be able to do it ourselves, and when, you know, potentially family members or extended family members have explicit or an implicit expectation of you that you should be able to do all of it, like I did it all by myself, or it's, you know, I'm not saying that this is what Chad did, but you know, when husbands are really organised, or when wives are really organised and they're like, but I find it easy. Why is it so hard for you to do it? There can be, I think our culture breeds that this is, you know, and if you've chosen to stay at home with your children and give up work for a period of time, like how could you not have time to be organised? Like how we all know.
Yeah, you're going to punch someone in the face if they say that to you.
Yeah, we all know that is not the truth, but when our culture, this is a message that our culture tells us that, you know, well, you've chosen to spend time at home with your children, so that is part of your job, is to learn, if you haven't already learnt it, to learn how to be organised, to learn how to declutter, to learn to be the perfect mum, which is what we talked about in the mental load episode. But I think... And then to, you know, if your family of origin are careful about money, and if your partnership in your family is about being careful with money, or one of you is careful with money, then it is an investment to have a professional organiser on board. So I totally, we get this all the time.
Yeah, it's good to have someone come and say it to the community.
Yeah. So Carly, what did you do to overcome, or how did you work around that?
Well, I will say I have the benefit of hindsight now, having done both, in that going into homes, as I said, is quite different, and you don't have the hang up of it being your own things. The other way to look at it as a staying at home or looking after the house, if I compared it to my career, well, you have training, or you get the help of experts in the workplace. I know my strengths, and that's what I get paid to go and do each day. So why not pay someone else who has that as their strength to come in and assist in that part of my life, is how I looked at it when I did take the step of getting Amy to come in. And I'd say that holds true now that I've been working as a professional organiser and going into other houses.
And I find also that, well, like you testified to this, that just having Amy come into your home, you learnt the great questions to ask of yourself, and then now you apply that when you're in our clients' homes. But just like in a professional setting, in a corporate setting where you are trained in a way, the expectation of you in a corporate setting or in a business setting is that you take on board the lessons that you've been taught by the trainer, and that you apply it to your everyday life. So, and that's why I'm like, well, that's a great take on the investment that you're making by having a professional organizer in, is that you're not just getting your house cleaned. Like, you're not getting it. We don't clean. You're not getting your house decluttered.
Amy definitely doesn't clean.
You don't get your house decluttered and organized. You get that training. You get the great questions to ask yourself. And particularly if you do it alongside these podcasts, and, you know, if you come and do the Head, Heart and Home course along with it, that you really do get that really good grounding and training in professional organising, whether you want to do like Carly has and become a professional organiser yourself, or if it's just for growing in your knowledge and developing a strength. Was having Amy in as you expected, or was there anything harder or easier, or what was that actual experience like?
I didn't have very strong set expectations, and that's been part of my longer-term minimalism journey in terms of helping my own mental health. So I can't say whether it was how I expected or not. What I hadn't thought of, though, when Amy comes in, is that she goes through everything. And it's very easy when it's your own stuff to go, oh, there's just a box in the corner, one shoe box in the whole room. We've done the whole room. Amy will go to that one shoe box and tip it out and go through everything one by one. And that took me by surprise.
And that, I think, is one of the benefits of having someone else, because it's easy to think, but it's just that, or it's just that cupboard, don't worry about it, that doesn't bother me. But when you do get into it, you're like, oh, I actually didn't need 75% of that.
Yes. So it was, I guess, the extent of detail that you go into that I wasn't expecting before she came in. Otherwise, though, not a lot. I hadn't sort of I had no expectations other than I'd like to get through these areas. I'm not sure how that's going to happen, just that an expert's going to come in and help me make it happen.
And we did. I really liked that you got like a sewing room at the end of it all. Like,
yes.
There was a sewing room. Like, I love that sometimes in a house we almost create spaces that weren't there. It's like, oh, I have a whole room for sewing. Like, how did that happen? Or I now have the kids have a playroom. They didn't have a playroom before. Those kind of things are pretty fun.
Yes, and I have been sewing.
Have you?
Yes.
What have you been sewing?
Kids' clothes.
Oh, awesome.
Just amazing. I just love what people are able to transform, like by themselves in their own homes, like with the learning that they seek out for themselves, and then also when we come alongside them. Did you find it helpful to, like, so often when I work with clients, people find it, I put it up on our Facebook community a couple of months ago now, but that body doubling effect, so that it's just having somebody in the space. Like, you were more than capable of doing all the work yourself. You had been doing it, and you could have gone slower. You know, you probably could have done it all by yourself. You didn't actually need Amy, but probably.
In retrospect, often, like, you feel like that's, Lex said it a couple of episodes ago, of helping you lose the last 5 kilos.
Yes, that's probably a good analogy for where I was at as well. I think, though, you get to that point of decision fatigue and you don't want to add physical fatigue to it as well. And I'd say that's where I add value, helping in other clients' houses, in that they're going through the decision fatigue. They don't have to lug the bags of stuff they've decided to get rid of out the front or to the donate pile, that sort of thing. So
we're a pretty wicked team when we get in a job together, aren't we? Like, we just work fast and hard. Yeah,
and that's I think where the value is added as well, of taking those extra things off the person who's already putting themselves under a fair amount of pressure just by going through the process.
Do you have a review for us, Kirst? I have the reviews in my pack too, but I'm just deferring to you today.
That's fine. I love reading reviews. This one is from LizinBriz. From Clutterbug to Clarity. She writes, I am a clutterbug by nature. Me too, my friend. But thanks largely to listening to the Art of Decluttering in just the last few years, as our house started to become more cluttered with 2 kids under 5, it's actually becoming tidier and better organised than before kids, which is a bit of a miracle, really. Thanks, lovely Kirsty and Amy. Really can't recommend this podcast enough.
Thanks, LizinBriz.
We love our Brisbane friends. Thank you.
And Carly, you're the best. We love working with you. Thank you for coming and sharing with our clients, with our community and our clients.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to work with you both and to talk to all your listeners.
Thank you. I want to say thank you because I worked with you once, but I don't have the privilege of working with you ongoing because we live in different states. But, if Jad gets moved to Sydney, he's got a job there.
Watch out.
But I wanted to extend my gratitude to you for the encouragement that you are to Amy and to me and to our community at large. You're often in there encouraging people and giving people your wisdom and your lived experience as well. So thank you so much for all that you do for our community, and thank you so much for being the bright shining light that you are and for really helping Amy and helping our team in Melbourne. So thank you, Carly.
Oh, pleasure.
Thanks for being on our podcast.
Have an amazing week, peeps.
Yes, we can't wait.
7 days, we'll be back here in your ears. See you next week.
Bye. Thanks for joining us.
If you've learnt something awesome today, we'd love you to leave us a review on iTunes or Facebook so others can find our podcast too.
Don't forget you can see the show notes in your podcast app or over at our website, artofdecluttering.com.au. So if there's anything you want more info on, check it out there.
If you'd like to join our supporter community, you can do so over at patreon.com/theartofdecluttering.
We hope you have a great rest of your day
and enjoy the freedom.